you want to be articulate like world-class podcasters, speakers, and leaders, I'm going to share this 7-stage journey that has taught me to speak with greater exactness and clarity. It includes understanding 3 problems invading your speech, the aha moment that immediately will improve your choice of words, and 3 thinking modifications that brought a verbal freshness and intelligence to my sentences. The first problem was my addiction to overusing dead phrases. Dead phrases are phrases and expressions that we use in such a recreational way that they have been stripped of all power in life. Popular dead phrases include pursue that avenue, the Achilles heel, secret sauce, to say the least, ins and outs, spill the beans. We use dead phrases because they save us the time and trouble of hunting for more precise words. This introduces the first of 7 articulacy rules. Rule number 1, articulacy increases when you practice conscious selection with your words. If you hastily choose ready-made phrases and gum them together in your sentences like the sections of a prefabricated IKEA table, they deaden and dull your sentence. Ultimately, you want to learn how to engineer sentences that are fresh, homemade, and excavate that richness and texture that often gets buried beneath dead phrases. The second problem holding me back was my small surface lexicon. The term lexicon refers to your personal vocabulary. Your surface lexicon are those 500 to 1,500 words that your brain unconsciously and effortlessly defaults to when you compose sentences. The concert was amazing. It was a really good book. These words you've heard, seen, said so often, they ooze out of your mouth. Beneath your surface lexicon is your deep lexicon. Your deep lexicon is made up of those 20,000 to 35,000 words you recognize but don't use. We know this because you recognize most, if not all, words that articulate speakers use. Why is it then that you struggle to think of those same words in conversation? Because those words don't register in your surface lexicon. This introduces the second rule of articulacy. Effortless articulacy is limited to the size of your surface lexicon. Now, this does not mean inflating your surface lexicon with flowery, sophisticated words. Articulate speakers recognize that you can use ordinary words and still be articulate. Think of your lexicon as a box of crayons. You can easily use a wide color palette to design a vibrant picture, or you can create something profound with just 3 colors, or choose an uncommon color to substitute for a common one. The same is true with your words. You don't always have to prostitute ordinary words down to obvious and common meanings. The third problem eroding my speaking was thought retention. When you can't retain a thought in your mind for longer than 10 seconds, your speech is like a kite, following every new wind current, never climbing high in the sky. Articulate speakers are able to hold a thought in their mind as they work to peel away the layers that lead to understanding. If you can't grip a thought in your mind, your thinking and speaking become superficial and scrambled. This is the third rule of articulacy. The longer you engage a thought, the greater depth you achieve with words. These are the 3 thorns in our tongue that prevent us from producing articulate speech. How did we come to this? Why do we battle with these issues? One day, I remember asking myself this after a particularly frustrating time of sounding juvenile and vague. I went to YouTube and researched the most articulate speakers I could find. It was then that I had an epiphany. Was my substandard speech the result of poor language inputs? I asked myself that question and wondered how much would I have to change the sources of language I expose myself to in order to influence my speech. To understand how my language was potentially being invaded by poor language sources, I began writing down each source of language that I exposed myself to for more than 10 minutes a day. I rated each on a scale of 1 to 10 on how articulate and intelligent I considered each to be. If you want to do this for yourself, you can use this worksheet that's freely linked below. This exercise revealed that I didn't have any language inputs higher than a 5, which is approximately the level of articulacy of an average conversation. I quickly realized the fourth rule of articulacy. The quality of your speech is a product of your language environments. The books you read, videos you watch, music you listen to, etch language patterns in your mind that unconsciously are imitated in your speech. And since most people aren't articulate or thoughtful with their words, you're constantly exposed to high doses of vague, vapid, and oftentimes vulgar language. Your surface lexicon is the size that it is because you encounter those 500 to 1,500 words daily. When we first learn language as children, we absorb 3 to 5 new words every day. By adulthood, it takes a deliberate effort to expose ourselves to new and creative word combinations. In fact, the battle is preventing the shrinking of our surface lexicon. Think of your surface lexicon as an expanding and contracting circle. Interacting with fresh word combinations, such as when you read a book, temporarily expands the radius of that circle to usher in those newfound words. If those words are not put to use, they lose their place within the circle, as its nature is to contract to include only your most actively used words. This is why great speakers read profusely. It is to keep that language heartbeat pulsing, expanding, and fortifying their surface lexicon. We can begin to improve our verbal health with the first modification I made to my speaking, the 3x5 language diet. This consists of 3 5-minute sessions for a total of 15 minutes per day focused on enriching your language. The first 5 minutes is spent reading an article or book chapter that's at least one level beyond your current average language input. This exercise will expose you to richer language and help you solve poor thought retention, which is a symptom of constantly fracturing your attention like we do on social media with bite-sized content. You don't know what material to begin with? Start with this list. The second 5 minutes includes reading poetry aloud with the intent of learning rhythm and cadence. There's a misnomer that articulacy is memorizing the dictionary and vomiting flowery words. It's not. The fifth rule of articulacy is sentences sound articulate when words flow and fit into eloquent molds. If you want to learn to effortlessly fit words together in beautiful and creative ways, your speaking apparatus, your mouth, your teeth, your tongue, your jaw need to feel what it's like to say beautiful sentences. This is precisely why dead phrases are terribly difficult to prune from your speaking. You're trying to resist engaging a pattern of muscles in your mouth that's been activated 1,000 times. It's like trying to change pre-cut lines on a cardboard box. When you tear the flap, it's expected to seamlessly follow the line, and we're trying to tear in a new direction. Recognize that you can create lines for other types of speaking. That's what reading poetry aloud accomplishes. Check out this list of poems linked below. I also have a popular poems playlist available on Spotify. The final 5 minutes is spent consciously attuned to the word choice of any podcast or audiobook you consume. Ignore the content, the substance of what's being said, and visualize in your mind the words being said. This will help you understand the difference between intelligence and eloquence. Intelligence is the knowledge communicated. Eloquence is how pleasing and persuasive the words sound. Here's a list of brilliant speakers who, in my opinion, have an unrivaled command of the English language. This 3x5 language formula invites the question, how do I use the creative words and phrases I encounter to enrich my speaking? I struggled with this myself and was inspired to build the ultimate tool to accelerate articulacy. This tool is called Nounce. Nounce allows you to create a word bank where you're able to log words and phrases that you want to stitch into your surface lexicon. You can practice retrieving those words from memory and use them in creative ways as you would like to in natural conversation. Nounce also has a library of popular online speakers that you can learn from. If you want to speak with the clarity of Steve Jobs or the eloquence of Martin Luther King Jr., select a speaker and you'll be guided through using their communication structures to develop clear answers automatically. Nounce was built out of a desire to give myself and the viewers of this channel a way of efficiently practicing producing clear and creative speech. Visit Nounce.ai to use this tool for free, or message me on Twitter if you'd like to be part of our team in helping others build a better world with their words. The second modification will reduce your dependence on dead phrases. The reason why we aim to reduce dead phrases is not because they're overused. It's because they slip us into a state of mental anesthesia where we choose words without serious thought. Noises come up from our larynx, our speaking instrument, but our brain is not as involved as if we were selecting the words for ourselves. The only way to gain back full consciousness is to descend past the dead phrase and into the heart of our thought. We accomplish this by increasing the consciousness per sentence. Think of a sentence as a mold that is filled with different levels of consciousness. The longer you think, the more saturated the words and overall sentence becomes. The more familiar a word or phrase is, the less consciousness is required to use it. Think of all the phrases and words you say automatically. Because of how little thought is required to use them, they often bruise our sentence with dull, colorless blocks. An articulate sentence is one where each block is vibrant and intentional. Listeners can feel this. We increase our consciousness per sentence by 1, being on guard against dead phrases. I've included below this video a list of the common dead phrases that frequently invade our sentences. Secondly, before you commit to responding to a question or sharing your opinion, repeat the question or topic aloud. What do I think about this topic? Why do we do this? Because that topic, or the way it was phrased, is a new or at least an unfamiliar set of words. Hearing those words spoken aloud with your own mouth begins to warm up your conscious mind. Most of us cold start our speaking engine with a few familiar phrases that we cast out into the soundscape in an attempt to find an opinion worth developing. Those phrases include, I don't know, I guess I just like, maybe I should, right? We're not thinking about what we're saying. It's not a bad answer, it's just not articulate. Remember, the first rule of articulacy. Articulacy increases when you practice conscious selection of your words. This is why pausing before speaking has long been considered a hallmark of articulate speakers. They are affording conscious thought to the sentence they're about to produce. The most unconscious part of our sentences is the beginning. The greatest communicators realize that the first few sentences, really the first few words, are where we are finding our opinion. Finding our opinion is like driving with a frosted windshield. It's hard to see the road ahead until the windshield is defrosted. Only then do you drive straight with confidence. The quickest way to begin warming up our conscious mind is to repeat the topic or question aloud. The final modification I made was learning the secret of intellectual humility. This is the brilliant practice of using your speaking weakness to supercharge your responses. When we listen to articulate speakers, what we perceive as them being articulate is less often about the precise, eloquent words and more about how they begin their sentences in a way that illustrates that they can creatively navigate challenging situations. Watch this clip from the American film director Orson Welles.
That's a better question than I have an answer for. Honestly, it is. I don't know. I would want to think about it. I think my answer would be frivolous, and I'd like to think about it. It's a worrisome question.
Notice in this clip how candid Orson was about not having a great answer and requiring time to think. This is what makes articulate speakers so captivating, their ability to be forward with their communication needs. This is the sixth rule of articulacy. An admission of limitation is often the most articulate answer. This single realization takes some people decades to internalize. If you can admit your limitations and be honest and forthcoming with them, you unlock a bulletproof level of confidence that most people will never possess. There are 2 steps that have helped me cultivate this intellectual humility. One is identifying your main communication insecurity. These are the 8 common insecurities we encounter when speaking. I'll share mine with you. I understand that I don't think quickly and require time to process information before I compose an answer. The quality of sentence I deliver after 10 seconds of thought is far more articulate than my instantaneous answer. How do I communicate this when I speak? Once you've identified your insecurity, find the right combination of words that allows you to articulate that weakness. What I often say is some variation of, give me a moment to process that. If you're like me, you might know the weakness that you do battle with, but you lack the right words that would give you the confidence to commit to sharing that weakness. Many of us would be far more assertive in our communication if we simply had the right verbal runway for the answers that we would like to give. To help you with this, for each of those 8 speaking insecurities, I've assembled the creative phrases and responses that world-renowned communicators have used in interviews and conversations that you can use yourself. These phrases are not intended to devolve into a dead phrase. We use them only for the purpose of having alternative ways of articulating our thoughts instead of being locked into just responding.